Leonard Menchiari. That's my name. I guess I'm at my fourth or fifth project. I worked on Trek to Yomi. Came up with an idea, made a demo, learned Unreal, pitched it to Devolver. They liked it. We got a team together, which is Flame Warhog, and then I learned how to, work with bigger teams, which is a whole other set of.
I'm actually really interested, like what you pitched.
I might have a link of the video actually. Yeah, it's just simply like it took me like 2-3 weeks. I learned Unreal, which is super easy to learn. And now that you have GPT-4, you got no excuse. If you don't know how to use that, you just need to like sit down and learn, because it's very simple. I mean, it's infinitely complex too, but like it really holds your hand. It's not like pure coding or going into like crazy stuff. You can do a lot with like zero knowledge today. So I learned Unreal, the basics, in a couple of weeks, and tried to make an experiment with a friend who was like, he kind of knew a little bit how to do combat stuff. So he was more an expert in the blueprints, then eventually learned that too. But I made this like 10-minute video or something of just a character going through some scenes with some background music, black and white, showing a few mechanics, showing what the character would go through, different camera angles, the idea of how the design should have been. Very broken, very basic, but that's all you needed. All I needed to show was like how the game was supposed to work. So I sent him that YouTube video. I had like a 30-page design document because, the ideas would just keep coming and I couldn't stop them. So I tried to, like, that was actually a bad thing. Usually you don't want a document that's that long. You want something much shorter, because you're going to have to redesign everything anyway, and publishers don't like to read anyway. So, and then that's kind of how it started. Like 6 to 8 months later, actually, we started production. It's been,
Really?
Yeah, because you got to go through contracts, and then you have to say, okay, maybe this is going to happen, maybe not. So you still need a lot of months to go through their contracts, go back and forth. Then maybe the team is not okay with some of the parts of the contract, etc. I mean, that part takes long. Maybe there's times where production starts much faster, but in that case, it took like at least 6 months. I can't remember exactly the amount of months, but it took some time before I could officially start, despite having everything pretty much available.
Can I ask what your approach to the scope was initially? Like, how big did you think the game was going to be when you initially envisioned it, and how did that change throughout the course?
Oh, my vision was way smaller, way smaller. I was not like, you could tell that the team was aspiring for like AAA mentality, like big team, big budget, and I kind of wanted more an indie thing. So cheat with the graphics, make it look cool. Atmosphere counts more than realism. Cool gameplay, fun as the most important thing, and then if you can improve, but keep the core solid. Like that to me was the number one thing. So my approach would have been like more simple. The fact that it went bigger, it just taught me a lot. So now I know what's good and bad about bigger productions, basically.
I feel like it's kind of like one of the dreams of many developers. I feel like having a 50-man team that like needs to do what you tell them. But I'm sure that in practice it's a bit more convoluted than that.
I guess it really depends on what's your goal. Like I think if you like leadership and then you should just be a producer and do that. But when your idea is to create something specific, you don't care if you have 50 people, if you have 2, you just need to get there, right? So if you're alone, you're gonna get there alone. If you have 100 people, you're gonna have to drag them with you. I mean, it's just when you know that something's going on its own and you don't fully know it's that direction. From my experience, every time that happens tends to go in the wrong direction.
When there's not a clear vision.
Yeah, it's because, someone listens to their boss and they're doing what they're told, and then you realize they're doing something that has nothing to do with their objective. So one important thing is you really need to be sure that everyone is on the same page and everyone understands what they're doing and they're not just doing whatever they're told to do, because otherwise you get like, you know, the telephone game, they speak on one ear. All right, so I think the most challenging part to me was that the contract was written in a way that was a bit, you know, they knew what they were doing basically. We came up with like all of the solutions of the game design idea in pre-production, because in pre-production I had control. I had creative control over the game design decisions. Only in pre-production though, which means that once we figure out something that we were all okay with, they scrapped the idea and they made their own because they had no power after pre-production. So that was kind of frustrating and kind of messed up in a way, right? So all these things help to figure out, you know, how to get these authentic sounds. And I'm a believer that sound and music are probably at least not, I don't know, maybe half what makes a game really good. Like we don't really realize it, but because it's in the background and it's kind of subconscious, it really does make a difference. And for music in this case, we just wanted to give that authentic feel. And I think the authentic feel, it's not just because of the black and white and all that, but the music is a big part of it. Well, yeah, the VR game, I'm trying the approach of going basically completely solo. I'm hiring talent all over the world for like smaller tasks, just so I don't get, you know, burned out. Because sometimes you get these things that require a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot
Where are you looking for people?
I'm usually like Fiverr is a good spot, but there's a lot of different platforms, and then Discord is great because someone can recommend you someone else, and then if I worked with someone from the past that was talented, I'm not gonna let them go. I mean, you always want to keep good life hackers, you know, because
yeah.
If you want to make a good game with few people, they all need to be hackers. Like you can't just expect them to work by the rules because the rules don't exist. And unless you're in a big production studio that they have their own set of rules, you're not supposed to stick to the rules because you're just wasting time and energies. So if you find solutions to make stuff faster that work, that's the way. That's what I'm trying to do. And also with like other whoever else is able to do that. You'll be surprised that there's very few people that are willing to just invent their own rules, which, I mean, I can't believe it. We even have AI that just basically does that for you. So right now it's like, you should break the rules. You should start discovering new paths. I mean, that's important for fields like this, art, life, everything, really.
Do you think, it's really interesting what you're saying. Do you think people who, and this kind of connect to the next question I wanted to ask you, but people who are now building their first game, there's this idea that I want to play it safe so I can make my adventurous stuff later, but I'm not sure you can make anything without taking a bunch of risks.
Yeah, well, that's a tough one though, because of games, right? So it's absolutely true what you're saying. You can't be too safe because otherwise it's not going to stand out. But if you take too many risks in a game, you go in development hell and then it doesn't come out. So I think first thing, try to make something that you can release, right? I mean, try to do that, because if you don't release it, then, you know, it's not going to happen. And then if you can get to that point, then start to expand more and more. And I think it just comes with experience, really. Just try to do a bunch of projects. That's what I would recommend, right? Maybe.
Have you worked on
a lot of small things, eventually you're going to be able to do bigger things. It's almost like that, you know, if you do one project and it takes you 10 years, you'll probably learn way less than if you made 10 projects a year, you know?
When it came to your previous projects, like, you're obviously still somewhat independent. what was your factor for success when you were making them? Because you had to have made enough money so you could, I'll guess, live comfortably or live the way you've
survive.
been. Yeah, or survive.
Survive is a nicer word, but like, yes, eventually live. That's a very tough question. It changed every time. I mean, when I was doing Riot, I was literally surviving and not even all that well. But you know, I wasn't doing anything else. So it's not that I was like, not that I was homeless, but like almost. I was like really borderline being able to eat and find places to sleep with friends and stuff. I mean, it was pretty tough. And we did have publishers. It's just the production team was not very organized, so the payments were like super low. And you know, when things go bad, they can get pretty rough. The important thing that I always kept in mind is like, I still need to finish the project, right? I still need to bring it to the end. And till that happens, you know, till I'm alive, I'm just gonna keep doing it. That's like the boundary. If I die, I can't anymore. But still alive, there's still the chance, right? So eventually, once you get like funding, that's good. You know, I started with like, first project was like terrible. The second project, I got a very little amount of funding, but still enough to live somewhat comfortably in poor parts of the world. So that's kind of what I did. And then afterwards, you know, I already made 2 games. So the third one was like, now I can have like, you know, somewhat of a paycheck and I can keep moving forward. And now I'm literally just like trying to figure it out, because every time is different. So
you've always worked with publishers by the sounds of things.
Yeah, it's because it's the only way I could afford to just. I mean, if I worked, I wouldn't have enough time to make the game. So it takes time to make a game, so I had to figure out that. Doesn't mean that if you work, you can't make a game. Like, you just need to, you know, do it differently. I guess I happen to do it this way. But I know a lot of people that work and do their game on the side, and that still works. So yeah, there's no real answer for this. It's just kind of like whatever you can make it.
What was the most valuable lesson you learned making this game? And I'll ask you a follow-up later about your previous games. Like, what was the most valuable lessons you learned from them as well?
Well, I think one of the most valuable things that I learned is that no matter how much you're prepared, there's always going to be like the challenges that you're going to face are always going to be in directions that you would never expect. So be prepared for that. If you think you know where the challenges are going to be, that's usually where the challenges won't be, because you think you got it under control. But there are always going to be other things that you're not going to expect, and those are going to be the real challenges.
Really interesting. Can I ask also what did you learn from your previous projects? What were the most valuable lessons you came out of development with?
Riot taught me about burnout, which I didn't know it existed. Then I experienced it. So yes, it exists. Even though you think you're a superhero and you can do everything, be aware that when you burn out, life is meaningless and you don't want to do anything anymore, and it's really bad. So be careful. So that burnout is something that maybe it's more common now to know. And it's not meaning like, oh, I'm so tired. It means that you really overdid it to the point that your brain just kind of fries and you're never gonna be as inspired ever again. Like it's really hard. So be very careful about that one. I think Riot taught me about that. And development hell. That's another thing. You just can get stuck on a project forever. So, you know, be careful about that. The second game, I guess, taught me that making a game can be extremely fun. I really enjoyed that one. If you make a game with the right people and you have fun making the game, not only the game is going to come out better, but the whole process is going to be very worth it. Well, I would say keep in mind the project that you're doing and try not to exceed what you need. So don't try to make a huge team just because you gotta make a huge team. If you think you need a huge team, that's a harder project. So you need experience for a bigger team. So try to figure out what you actually need. Put down, list the things that you need. And then once you realize how long it's going to take you, if you realize, oh, if I did this on my own on a timeline, it's going to take me 5 years. Well, yeah, maybe work with 5 people and then maybe it's going to take you 1 year, right? So that would be a thing. Do a timeline and some pre-production, and don't try to make something bigger just because it has to be bigger. Again, timelines usually don't get fully respected, but at least you have an idea. You know, you start with something, and that's important. And then from there you can move around things. Try not to add too much stuff, because the more you add, the more bugs come out, the more mechanics come out, the more you have to make everything coincide with everything else. So it gets exponentially harder the more stuff you put in the game. So keep that in mind. Try to make something simple and then play it. And I guess the last thing I would suggest, really try to still have fun as an indie. Like, you have this possibility, so try to make a game that you still enjoy playing if possible. Just try to still enjoy the game by the time you're done, because if you're still enjoying the game by the time you're done and you manage to make it in a way that new players also enjoy it, then you got the whole range. You got the range of new players that tried the game and are enjoying it, and you still like it, so you know that it has enough depth that you could play it for as long as you made it. So that's good. So, you know, I think that's one of the most important things. Try to still have fun while making the game. You need to like it, otherwise it's gonna be shit.